Welcome to Dark Verse, where shadows linger and the unknown beckons. I'm Isaac Nightshade, your guide through tales that chill the spine and stir the imagination. Today we embark on a journey through Tales of the Unknown, a collection of 24 haunting stories that will lead you into worlds where reality and the supernatural intertwine. From ghostly apparitions to mysterious phenomena, each story promises to captivate and unsettle. Prepare to be drawn into the darkness, and remember, sometimes the most haunting stories are whispered in the quiet of the night. The Mirror's Curse. Sarah had always been fascinated by the past, so when she inherited an antique mirror from her grandmother, she was thrilled. The mirror was ornate, with a gilded frame that seemed to whisper of secrets long forgotten. Her grandmother had always kept it covered, warning Sarah never to look into it at night. But Sarah, curious and skeptical, dismissed the warning as an old superstition. The first night, she placed the mirror in her bedroom, admiring how it caught the moonlight. As she lay in bed, she felt an inexplicable pull towards it. The room was silent, save for the ticking of the clock, and the air seemed to thicken with anticipation. Unable to resist, Sarah got up and stood before the mirror. Her reflection stared back, but there was something else. A shadowy figure lurking just behind her. It was indistinct, a mere silhouette, but its presence was undeniable. Sarah's heart raced as the figure leaned closer, whispering her name in a voice that was both familiar and foreign. She stumbled back, her breath catching in her throat. The next day, Sarah tried to shake off the experience, convincing herself it was a trick of the light. But as night fell, the memory of the whisper lingered, a haunting melody that played on repeat in her mind. She resolved to ignore it, but curiosity gnawed at her, urging her to look again. That night, her dreams were filled with visions of the mirror. She saw herself standing before it, her reflection distorted and twisted. The shadowy figure was there, its hand reaching out to touch her shoulder. As its fingers brushed her skin, she saw a flash of the future, a tragic accident that left her breathless with fear. Sarah awoke with a start, her heart pounding in her chest. The dream had felt so real, the vision so vivid. She knew she had to avoid the fate she had seen, but the mirror's pull was stronger than ever. Determined to break its hold, she decided to cover it, hoping to silence the whispers once and for all. As she approached the mirror, the air grew colder and the shadows deepened. The figure appeared again, its form more defined, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It reached out, trying to pull her in, its grip icy and relentless. Panic surged through Sarah, and she fought back, her hands scrabbling for purchase on the smooth surface. In her struggle, the mirror toppled, crashing to the floor with a deafening shatter. The glass splintered, releasing a wail that echoed through the house, a mournful cry that sent shivers down her spine. The figure vanished, leaving only silence in its wake. Sarah stood amidst the shards, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The mirror's curse had been broken, but the memory of its power lingered, a reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. Determined to ensure no one else fell victim to its curse, Sarah gathered the remnants of the mirror and took them to the garden. There, under the light of the moon, she buried them deep in the earth, whispering a silent prayer for peace. As she returned to the house, she reflected on her grandmother's warning, realizing the wisdom in her words. The past held power, and some secrets were best left undisturbed. The mirror had shown her the fragility of fate, and she vowed to live each day with gratitude and caution. With the mirror gone, the house felt lighter, the air clearer. The whispers had ceased, and the shadows no longer held their menace. Sarah knew she had been given a second chance, and she intended to make the most of it. The Whispering Woods. The Whispering Woods had always been a place of mystery and legend. Nestled on the outskirts of a small town, the forest was dense and dark, its trees towering like ancient sentinels. Locals spoke of strange occurrences and eerie whispers that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the woods. For a group of friends, Mark, Lisa, and Tom, the woods promised adventure. They had heard the stories but dismissed them as mere folklore. Armed with flashlights and a sense of bravado, they set out to explore the forest one crisp autumn evening. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the air grew cooler, and the light of the setting sun filtered through the canopy, casting long shadows on the forest floor. The path was narrow and winding, and the sound of their footsteps was muffled by the thick carpet of leaves. "Do you hear that?" Lisa asked, pausing to listen. The others stopped, straining to hear over the rustle of leaves. It was faint at first, a soft murmur that seemed to come from all around them. "It's just the wind," Mark said, trying to sound confident. But as they continued, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. They seemed to form words, though none of them could understand what was being said. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier bravado waning. "Maybe we should head back," Tom suggested, his voice tinged with uncertainty. But curiosity got the better of them, and they pressed on, drawn by the mysterious voices. The path led them to a clearing, where the trees parted to reveal a small, weathered cabin. It looked abandoned, its windows dark and its door slightly ajar. "Let's check it out," Mark said, his curiosity piqued. They approached cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the gathering gloom. The air was thick with anticipation, and the whispers seemed to converge on the cabin, urging them forward. Inside, the cabin was empty, save for a few pieces of broken furniture and a thick layer of dust. The whispers were louder here, echoing off the walls like a chorus of unseen voices. Lisa shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "This place gives me the creeps," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. As they explored, Tom found an old journal tucked away in a corner. Its pages were yellowed and fragile, filled with the scrawled notes of someone who had once lived there. The journal spoke of the whispers, of voices that called to the writer, leading them deeper into the woods. The friends realized the whispers were not just the wind, but the voices of those who had been lost to the forest, their spirits trapped and seeking release. The cabin was a focal point, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. Determined to help, they gathered in the clearing, forming a circle and holding hands. They spoke words of peace, asking the spirits to find rest. As they did, the air grew warmer, and the whispers softened, fading into the night. The friends left the woods in silence, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had experienced. The forest was still and quiet, the whispers gone, leaving only the rustle of leaves in the breeze. Back in town, they shared their story, and the locals listened with a mix of awe and disbelief. The Whispering Woods had always been a place of mystery, but now it was a place of peace, its secrets finally laid to rest. Mark, Lisa, and Tom knew they had been part of something extraordinary, and they vowed to honor the spirits of the woods by sharing their tale. The forest had taught them the power of listening and the importance of respecting the unknown. The Ghostly Inn. Nestled in the rolling hills of the English countryside, the Willowbrook Inn was a charming, ivy-covered establishment that promised a peaceful retreat for weary travelers. Its quaint rooms and cozy fireplaces offered a warm welcome. But the inn held a secret that few knew. A secret that whispered through its halls and lingered in the shadows. For years, the inn had been run by the same family, passed down through generations. But as the years went by, the family had dwindled, leaving only the innkeeper, Mrs. Hawthorne, to manage the place. She was a kind woman, with a gentle smile and a twinkle in her eye, but there was something about her that seemed otherworldly. One stormy evening, a group of travelers arrived at the inn, seeking shelter from the rain. Among them was a young couple, Sarah and James, who were drawn to the inn's charm and the promise of a restful night. As they settled into their room, Sarah noticed a chill in the air, a cold that seemed to seep from the walls. She dismissed it as the weather, but as the night wore on, she began to hear whispers, soft voices that seemed to come from the very walls. Curious and a little unnerved, Sarah decided to explore the inn, leaving James asleep in their room. The halls were dimly lit, the flickering candlelight casting eerie shadows on the walls. As she wandered, she felt a presence, a sense of being watched. In the dining room, she found Mrs. Hawthorne, sitting by the fire with a cup of tea. "Can't sleep, dear?" the innkeeper asked, her voice warm and inviting. Sarah hesitated, unsure of how to voice her concerns. "I thought I heard something," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Voices, maybe." Mrs. Hawthorne smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "The inn has its secrets," she said, her tone gentle, "but there's nothing to fear. The spirits here are friendly, just a bit lonely." Intrigued, Sarah sat down, eager to learn more. Mrs. Hawthorne explained that the inn was home to the spirits of those who had once lived and worked there, souls who had found comfort in its walls and chose to remain. They mean no harm, Mrs. Hawthorne assured her. They just like to keep an eye on things, make sure the inn is well cared for. As the night wore on, Sarah listened to the stories of the inn's past, of the people who had come and gone, leaving their mark on the place. She felt a sense of connection, a warmth that chased away the chill. The next morning, as the travelers prepared to leave, Sarah shared her experience with James, who listened with a mix of skepticism and wonder. "Ghosts, you say?" he teased, though his eyes held a hint of belief. Sarah nodded, her heart full of gratitude. "They're part of the inn's charm," she said, smiling, "and I think they like it that way." As they drove away, Sarah glanced back at the inn, its ivy-covered walls bathed in the morning light. She knew she had been part of something special, a place where the past and present intertwined, and the spirits of the inn watched over all who entered. The Willowbrook Inn had taught her the power of history and the importance of honoring the stories of those who came before. It was a place of peace where the living and the dead could find solace, and Sarah knew she would carry its memory with her always. The Silent Town. Nestled in a remote valley, the town of Stillwater was a place that time seemed to have forgotten. Its streets were lined with quaint cottages and cobblestone paths, and the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers. But there was something unusual about Stillwater. Its residents were eerily silent. For travelers passing through, the silence was unsettling. Conversations were conducted in whispers, and the townsfolk moved with quiet grace, their expressions serene yet distant. It was as if the town existed in a world of its own, untouched by the noise and chaos of the outside world. One summer afternoon, a couple named Alex and Mia found themselves in Stillwater. Their car had broken down on the way to their vacation destination. Stranded and in need of assistance, they wandered the streets, hoping to find someone who could help. As they walked, they noticed the townspeople watching them with curious eyes, their faces expressionless. Alex and Mia exchanged uneasy glances, the silence pressing down on them like a heavy fog. Eventually, they found a small inn, its sign swinging gently in the breeze. The innkeeper, a kindly old man, greeted them with a nod, his voice barely a whisper. "Welcome to Stillwater," he said, his words carrying an air of mystery. Grateful for the hospitality, Alex and Mia checked in, their curiosity piqued by the town's peculiar atmosphere. That evening, as they sat in the inn's cozy dining room, they struck up a conversation with the innkeeper, eager to learn more about the town. "Why is everyone so quiet?" Mia asked, her voice breaking the stillness. The innkeeper smiled, a wistful look in his eyes. "Stillwater has its secrets," he replied, his voice soft. "Long ago, the town was plagued by a terrible curse, one that brought chaos and discord. To break the curse, the townsfolk vowed to live in silence, to find peace in the quiet." Alex and Mia listened, their imaginations captured by the tale. The innkeeper explained that the silence had become a way of life, a tradition passed down through generations. It was a choice, a commitment to harmony and tranquility. As the night wore on, Alex and Mia found themselves drawn to the town's quiet beauty. They wandered the streets, the moon casting a gentle glow on the cobblestones. The silence, once unsettling, now felt comforting, a balm for their weary souls. The next morning, as they prepared to leave, the townspeople gathered to bid them farewell. Though no words were spoken, the warmth in their eyes spoke volumes, a silent communication that transcended language. As Alex and Mia drove away, they reflected on their time in Stillwater, grateful for the unexpected detour. The silent town had taught them the power of quiet, the beauty of stillness, and the importance of listening to the world around them. Stillwater was a place of peace, a sanctuary from the noise of modern life. And Alex and Mia knew they would carry its lessons with them always. The town's silence was not a curse, but a gift, a reminder that sometimes the most profound connections are made in the quiet moments. The time loop. In the bustling city of New Haven, life moved at a relentless pace, each day blending into the next. For David, a young office worker, the routine was comforting, a predictable rhythm that kept his world in order. But one morning, as he awoke to the sound of his alarm, he sensed that something was different. The day unfolded as usual. Breakfast, a crowded subway ride, and the familiar hum of the office. Yet there was an odd sense of déjà vu, a feeling that he had lived this day before. Dismissing it as fatigue, David carried on, unaware that his life was about to take a surreal turn. As the day drew to a close, David left the office, eager to unwind. But as he stepped outside, the world seemed to shift, the air shimmering with an otherworldly light. He blinked, and suddenly he was back in his bed, the alarm blaring in his ears. Confused and disoriented, David checked the date, his heart sinking as he realized it was the same day. He had somehow been transported back, in time, trapped in a loop that defied explanation. Determined to break free, David tried everything he could think of, changing his routine, making different choices, even confiding in his friends. But no matter what he did, the day always reset, leaving him back at the beginning. As the days turned into weeks, David's frustration grew, the weight of the loop pressing down on him like a heavy fog. He felt isolated and disconnected from the world around him. His life was reduced to a series of repetitive motions. But as he navigated the loop, David began to notice patterns, small details that had escaped him before. He saw the kindness in a stranger's smile, the beauty in a sunset, the joy in a child's laughter. The loop forced him to slow down, to appreciate the moments he had once taken for granted. One evening, as he sat in a park, watching the sun dip below the horizon, David had a revelation. The loop was not a curse, but a gift, a chance to change, to grow, to become the person he wanted to be. With renewed determination, David embraced the loop, using each day to learn, to connect, to make a difference. He volunteered at a local shelter, helped a neighbor in need, and reached out to friends he had lost touch with. As he focused on others, the loop began to unravel, the days shifting and changing in subtle ways. The world felt different and brighter, and David knew he was on the right path. One morning, as he awoke to the sound of his alarm, David sensed that the loop had finally broken. The date had changed, and the world felt new, filled with possibilities. Grateful for the experience, David vowed to carry the lessons of the loop with him, to live each day with purpose and gratitude. The time loop had taught him the power of change, the importance of connection, and the beauty of the present moment. The Witch's Garden. In the quaint village of Elder Grove, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there was a garden unlike any other. Hidden behind a wrought iron gate, it was said to belong to a reclusive woman known only as the Witch of Elder Grove. The garden was a place of wonder and mystery, filled with plants that defied explanation. For years, the villagers had whispered about the garden, sharing tales of its strange and magical properties. Some claimed that the plants could heal any ailment, while others spoke of their ability to reveal the future. But few dared to venture beyond the gate, fearing the witch's wrath. One day, a young botanist named Clara arrived in the village, drawn by the stories of the garden. She was a woman of science, fascinated by the unknown, and determined to uncover the secrets of the witch's plants. With a mixture of excitement and trepidation, Clara approached the garden, her heart pounding in her chest. The gate creaked open at her touch, and she stepped inside, her senses overwhelmed by the sights and scents that surrounded her. The garden was a riot of color, with flowers and herbs of every hue. The air was thick with the fragrance of blossoms, and the ground was carpeted with lush greenery. Clara felt a thrill of discovery as she moved among the plants, her fingers brushing against leaves that seemed to hum with energy. As she explored, Clara noticed a figure watching her from the shadows. A woman with silver hair and piercing eyes, the witch, she realized, her heart skipping a beat. "You're not afraid?" the witch asked, her voice a soft melody that carried on the breeze. Clara shook her head, her curiosity outweighing her fear. "I'm fascinated," she admitted, her eyes wide with wonder. "I've never seen anything like this." The witch smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "The garden is a place of magic," she said, her voice filled with pride. "But it is also a place of balance. Each plant has its purpose, its power, and its price." Intrigued, Clara spent the afternoon with the witch, learning about the plants and their properties. She discovered that the garden was a living tapestry, a delicate ecosystem that required care and respect. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the garden, Clara felt a sense of peace settle over her. The witch had shared her knowledge freely, and Clara knew she had been given a rare gift. Before she left, the witch handed Clara a small pouch filled with seeds. "Plant these with care," she instructed, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "They will teach you more than I ever could." Clara returned to the village, her heart full of gratitude and wonder. She planted the seeds in her own garden, tending to them with the knowledge she had gained. As they grew, she marveled at their beauty and power, each plant a testament to the magic of the witch's garden. The experience had changed Clara, opening her eyes to the mysteries of the natural world. She had learned the importance of balance, the power of nature, and the wisdom of those who came before. The witch's garden had taught her that magic was real and that it could be found in the most unexpected places. It was a lesson she would always carry with her, a reminder of the beauty and wonder that lay just beyond the gate. The Night Caller. In the quiet town of Maplewood, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, life moved at a gentle pace. The townsfolk were friendly, the streets were lined with charming houses, and the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers. But as night fell, a sense of unease settled over the town, for it was then that the Night Caller made his presence known. For years, the townspeople had whispered about the mysterious figure who roamed the streets after dark, his footsteps echoing through the silence. Some claimed he was a ghost, others a lost soul seeking redemption. But no one knew for sure, for the Night Caller never spoke, never revealed his face. One summer evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a young woman named Emily found herself alone in her house, the only sound the ticking of the clock. She had heard the stories of the Night Caller, but had always dismissed them as mere folklore. As the clock struck midnight, Emily heard a soft knock. At her door, a sound that sent a chill down her spine. She hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest before gathering the courage to answer. On the doorstep stood a man, his face hidden in the shadows. He was tall and thin, his clothes worn and tattered. "May I come in?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily hesitated, unsure of what to do. But something in the man's voice, a note of desperation, compelled her to step aside and let him in. As he entered, the air grew colder, and Emily felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. The man sat at her kitchen table, his eyes downcast, his hands trembling. "Who are you?" Emily asked, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her. The man looked up, his eyes filled with a sadness that tugged at her heart. "I am the Night Caller," he said, his voice a soft melody that carried on the breeze. "I wander the streets, seeking those who need to hear my story." Intrigued, Emily sat down, eager to learn more. The man spoke of a time long ago, of a life filled with love and loss, of choices made and regrets carried. His words painted a picture of a world that had once been vibrant and full of promise, now faded and forgotten. As the night wore on, Emily listened, her heart aching for the man who had become a ghost in his own life. She realized that the Night Caller was not a threat, but a soul-seeking connection, a voice longing to be heard. Before he left, the man thanked Emily for her kindness, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You have given me peace," he said, his voice a whisper in the darkness. As the door closed behind him, Emily felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of fulfillment that had been absent for so long. The Night Caller had taught her the power of listening, the importance of empathy, and the beauty of finding connection in the most unexpected places. The next morning, as the town awoke to a new day, Emily shared her experience with her neighbors, and the story of the Night Caller spread. The townsfolk listened with a mix of awe and disbelief, their hearts touched by the tale of a man who had found solace in the quiet of the night. Maplewood was a place of peace, a sanctuary from the noise of modern life, and Emily knew she would carry the lessons of the Night Caller with her always. The mysterious figure had shown her that sometimes the most profound connections are made in the quiet moments when the world is still and the heart is open. The fog of despair. The coastal town of Gray Harbor was known for its picturesque views and charming streets, but it was also infamous for the dense fog that rolled in from the sea, enveloping the town in a shroud of mystery. The locals called it the Fog of Despair, a name whispered with a mix of fear and reverence. For years, the fog had been a part of life in Gray Harbor, a natural phenomenon that came and went with the tides. But there were those who believed it was more than just weather, that it held a power that could reach into the hearts of those it touched. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the fog rolled in, thicker and more oppressive than ever before. It crept through the streets, muffling sound and obscuring vision, leaving the town in an eerie silence. For Anna, a young woman who had lived in Gray Harbor all her life, the fog was both familiar and unsettling. She had heard the stories of its power, of how it could bring out a person's deepest fears and darkest memories, but she had never experienced it for herself until now. As the fog enveloped her home, Anna felt a chill seep into her bones, a cold that was more than just physical. She sat by the window, watching as the world outside disappeared into the mist, her heart heavy with a sense of foreboding. The fog seemed to whisper to her, a soft, insistent voice that tugged at the edges of her consciousness. It spoke of loss and regret, of dreams unfulfilled, and paths not taken. Anna felt a wave of despair wash over her, a sadness that threatened to overwhelm her. Determined not to succumb, Anna forced herself to move, to break free from the fog's grip. She ventured outside, the air thick and heavy, each step a struggle against the weight of her own emotions. As she walked through the deserted streets, Anna encountered others who had been drawn out by the fog, their faces etched with fear and sorrow. Together, they formed a silent procession, moving through the mist in search of solace. In the town square, they gathered a small group of souls seeking comfort in each other's presence. The fog swirled around them, a living entity that seemed to pulse with energy. Anna realized that the fog was not just a force of nature, but a mirror, reflecting the innermost fears and desires of those it touched. It was a test, a challenge to confront the darkness within and find the strength to overcome it. With renewed determination, Anna spoke words of hope and encouragement, urging her companions to face their fears and embrace the light. As they listened, the fog began to lift, the air growing warmer, and the world slowly reappeared from the mist. The townsfolk returned to their homes, their hearts lighter, their spirits renewed. The fog of despair had tested them, but it had also brought them together, reminding them of the power of community and the resilience of the human spirit. As the sun rose over Gray Harbor, casting a golden glow on the town, Anna knew she had been part of something extraordinary. The fog had taught her the importance of facing one's fears, the strength found in unity, and the beauty of a new dawn, the dollhouse. In the quaint town of Willow Creek, nestled among the rolling hills and whispering pines, stood an old Victorian house. It was a place of charm and history, its rooms filled with the memories of generations past. But hidden within its walls was a secret, a dollhouse that mirrored the events of the real world. For young Lucy, the dollhouse was a source of endless fascination. It had been a gift from her grandmother, who had whispered tales of its magic and mystery. The dollhouse was an exact replica of their home, down to the smallest detail, and Lucy spent hours arranging the tiny furniture and imagining the lives of the dolls within. One rainy afternoon, as the storm clouds gathered and the wind howled outside, Lucy noticed something strange. The dolls in the dollhouse were not where she had left them. They had moved. Their positions changed, as if they had a life of their own. Intrigued and a little unnerved, Lucy watched as the dolls continued to move, reenacting scenes from her own life. She saw her parents in the kitchen, her brother playing in the yard, and herself sitting by the window lost in thought. As the days passed, Lucy realized that the dollhouse was more than just a toy. It was a window into another world, a place where the line between reality and imagination blurred. The dolls seemed to know things, to anticipate events before they happened, and Lucy found herself drawn into their world. One evening, as the sun set and the shadows lengthened, Lucy noticed a new figure in the dollhouse, a stranger standing at the door, his face hidden in shadow. The sight sent a chill down her spine, and she felt a sense of foreboding that she couldn't shake. Determined to uncover the truth, Lucy spent the night watching the dollhouse, her eyes glued to the tiny figures as they moved through their miniature world. As the clock struck midnight, the stranger entered the house, his presence unsettling and ominous. Lucy watched in horror as the dolls reacted, their movements frantic and fearful. She realized that the stranger was a threat, a dark force that had invaded their world, and she knew she had to act. With a sense of urgency, Lucy rearranged the dolls, positioning them to confront the stranger. She whispered words of courage and strength, willing them to stand their ground and protect their home. As the first light of dawn crept through the window, Lucy saw the stranger retreat, his form dissolving into the shadows. The dolls returned to their places, their world once again at peace. Relieved and exhausted, Lucy knew she had witnessed something extraordinary. The dollhouse had shown her the power of imagination, the strength of family, and the importance of standing up to darkness. As she closed the dollhouse, Lucy felt a sense of gratitude for the lessons it had taught her. It was a reminder that even in the smallest of worlds, there was magic to be found, and that courage and love could overcome even the darkest of shadows. The Vanishing Room. In the heart of the bustling city of Eldridge, the Grand Hotel stood as a testament to a bygone era. Its opulent halls and luxurious rooms had hosted countless guests over the years, each leaving with stories of their stay. But there was one room that held a mystery all its own. A room that appeared and disappeared without warning. For years, rumors had circulated about room 213, a suite that seemed to exist only when it chose to. Guests who stayed there spoke of strange occurrences, of waking up to find themselves in different parts of the hotel, or of the room itself vanishing overnight. Intrigued by the tales, a journalist named Claire decided to investigate the phenomenon. She checked into the Grand Hotel, determined to uncover the truth behind the vanishing room. As she settled into her room, Claire felt a sense of anticipation, her heart racing with the thrill of the unknown. The hotel was a maze of corridors and staircases, each turn revealing a new mystery. But it was room 213 that held her attention, its door slightly ajar, as if inviting her in. That night, as the city lights twinkled outside her window, Claire ventured into room 213, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. The room was elegantly furnished with a plush bed and ornate decor, but there was an air of unease that lingered in the shadows. As she explored, Claire noticed a peculiar sensation, a feeling of being watched. The air was thick with tension, and the walls seemed to pulse with energy. She felt a chill run down her spine, a whisper of something just beyond her understanding. Determined to document her experience, Claire set up her camera, capturing the room in all its eerie beauty. But as the night wore on, she began to feel drowsy, her eyelids growing heavy despite her efforts to stay awake. When she awoke, the room was different. The furniture had shifted, the decor altered, as if the room itself had transformed overnight. Claire's heart raced as she realized she was no longer in room 213, but in a different part of the hotel entirely. Confused and disoriented, Claire retraced her steps, her mind racing with the implications. The Vanishing Room was not just a legend, but a reality, a place that existed between worlds, a portal to the unknown. As she pieced together the mystery, Claire discovered that the room was a reflection of the hotel's history, a manifestation of the stories and memories of those who had passed through its doors. Yordati was a place of transition, a space where the past and present intertwined. With newfound understanding, Claire returned to room 213, her heart full of gratitude for the experience. She knew she had been part of something extraordinary, a moment where the boundaries of reality had blurred and the secrets of the hotel had been revealed. As she checked out of the Grand Hotel, Claire shared her story with the staff, who listened with a mix of awe and disbelief. The Vanishing Room had always been a mystery, but now it was a place of wonder, its secrets finally laid bare. Claire left the hotel with a sense of fulfillment, her heart light with the knowledge that she had uncovered a piece of history. The Vanishing Room had taught her the power of curiosity, the importance of embracing the unknown, and the beauty of a world filled with endless possibilities. The Curse of the Sea Witch. In the small fishing village of Blackwater Cove, tales of the Sea Witch were as old as the tides. The villagers spoke of her in hushed tones, warning of her wrath and the curse she cast upon those who dared to cross her. It was said that she dwelled in the depths of the ocean, her spirit bound to the waves and the wind, For generations, the fishermen of Blackwater Cove had respected the Sea Witch, offering her gifts and prayers in exchange for safe passage and bountiful catches. But as the years passed, the old ways were forgotten, and the village fell into disrepair. One stormy night, as the waves crashed against the cliffs and the wind howled through the streets, a young fisherman named Jack set out to sea. He was determined to prove himself, to bring back a catch that would restore the village's fortunes. As he sailed into the storm, Jack felt a chill in the air, a sense of foreboding that gnawed at his heart. The sea was angry, the waves towering like giants, and the wind carried a voice, a whisper that seemed to call his name. Ignoring the warnings of his fellow fishermen, Jack pressed on, his eyes fixed on the horizon. But as the storm grew fiercer, he realized he was not alone. A figure emerged from the depths, her form shifting and ethereal, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The Sea Witch, Jack realized, his heart pounding in his chest. She was beautiful and terrifying, her presence a force of nature that demanded respect. "You have forgotten the old ways," she said, her voice a melody that echoed through the storm. "You have taken from the sea without giving in return." Jack trembled, his courage faltering in the face of her power. "I meant no harm," he pleaded, his voice barely audible over the roar of the waves. "I only wanted to help my village." The Sea Witch regarded him with a mixture of pity and disdain. "The sea is not yours to command," she replied, her voice softening. "But I will give you a chance to make amends." With a wave of her hand, the storm subsided, the sea calming to a gentle swell. Jack watched in awe as the witch disappeared into the depths, her presence lingering like a shadow on the water. Grateful for her mercy, Jack returned to the village, his heart full of resolve. He shared his encounter with the Sea Witch, urging the villagers to remember the old ways, to honor the sea and the spirits that dwelled within it. Together, they offered gifts and prayers, their voices rising in harmony with the waves. The village prospered, the sea once again provided for their needs, and the curse of the Sea Witch was lifted. Jack knew he had been given a second chance, a chance to restore balance and harmony to Blackwater Cove. The Sea Witch had taught him the power of respect, the importance of tradition, and the beauty of a world where the past and present coexisted. As the sun set over the ocean, casting a golden glow on the water, Jack felt a sense of peace settles over him. The curse of the Sea Witch had been broken, and the village was once again a place of hope and promise. The ghostly child. In the sleepy town of Meadowbrook, nestled between rolling hills and ancient forests, there was a park where children played and laughter filled the air. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the park took on a different atmosphere, one of mystery and whispers. For years, the townsfolk had spoken of a ghostly child who roamed the park at night, her laughter echoing through the trees. Some claimed she was the spirit of a girl who had died long ago, while others believed she was a guardian, watching over the children who played there. One summer evening, as the fireflies danced in the twilight, a young boy named Ethan found himself drawn to the park. He had heard the stories of the ghostly child, but his curiosity outweighed his fear. As he wandered through the park, the air grew cooler and the shadows lengthened. Ethan felt a presence beside him, a sense of being watched. He turned to see a girl standing a few feet away, her form shimmering in the fading light. She was dressed in old-fashioned clothes, her hair tied with a ribbon, and her eyes held a sadness that tugged at Ethan's heart. "Hello," she said, her voice a soft whisper that carried on the breeze. Ethan hesitated, unsure of what to say. "Are you the ghost?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. The girl nodded, a wistful smile on her lips. "I am," she replied, her gaze drifting to the swings that swayed gently in the breeze. "I used to play here, a long time ago." Intrigued, Ethan sat down on the grass, eager to learn more. The ghostly child spoke of her life, the games she played, and the friends she had made. Her words painted a picture of a world that had once been vibrant and full of joy, now faded and forgotten. As the night wore on, Ethan listened, his heart aching for the girl who had become a ghost in her own world. He realized that she was not a threat, but a soul-seeking connection, a voice longing to be heard. Before she vanished into the night, The ghostly child thanked Ethan for his kindness, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You've given me peace," she said, her voice a whisper in the darkness. As the park fell silent, Ethan felt a warmth spread through him, a sense of fulfillment that had been absent for so long. The ghostly child had taught him the power of listening, the importance of empathy, and the beauty of finding connection in the most unexpected places. The next morning, as the town awoke to a new day, Ethan shared his experience with his friends, and the story of the ghostly child spread. The townsfolk listened with a mix of awe and disbelief, their hearts touched by the tale of a girl who had found solace in the quiet of the night. Meadowbrook was a place of peace, a sanctuary from the noise of modern life, and Ethan knew he would carry the lessons of the ghostly child with him always. The mysterious figure had shown him that sometimes the most profound connections are made in the quiet moments when the world is still and the heart is open. The Haunted Library. In the heart of the bustling city of Riverton, the old public library stood as a monument to knowledge and history. Its towering shelves were filled with books of every kind, from ancient times to modern novels. But among the rows of dusty volumes, there were whispers of something more, a haunting presence that lingered in the shadows. For years, the library had been a place of refuge for those seeking solace in the written word. But as the sun set and the last patrons left, for the day, the library took on a different air, one of mystery and secrets. For Emily, the head librarian, the library was her sanctuary. She had worked there for years, tending to the books and ensuring that the stories within them were preserved for future generations. But she had also heard the whispers, the soft voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls. One evening, as she prepared to close up for the night, Emily noticed something strange. A book lay open on a table, its pages fluttering as if caught in a breeze. Intrigued, she approached, her heart racing with a mix of fear and curiosity. As she reached for the book, the air grew colder and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Emily felt a presence beside her, a sense of being watched. She turned to see a figure standing in the shadows, its form indistinct and ethereal. "Who are you?" Emily asked, her voice steady despite the chill that crept up her spine. The figure stepped into the light, revealing the face of a young woman, her eyes filled with a longing that tugged at Emily's heart. "I am a guardian," she said, her voice a soft melody that carried on the breeze. "I watch over the stories, ensuring they are never forgotten." Emily listened, her mind racing with the implications. The library was not just a repository of books, but a living entity, a place where the past and present intertwined. The spirits of the authors lingered, their voices echoing through the halls, seeking connection and understanding. Determined to help, Emily spent the night in the library, listening to the whispers and learning the stories of those who had come before. She discovered that the spirits were not a threat, but a source of wisdom and inspiration, a reminder of the power of the written word. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, Emily felt a sense of peace settles over her. The library was a place of magic, a sanctuary for those who sought knowledge and understanding. The next morning, as the library opened its doors to the public, Emily shared her experience with her colleagues, and the story of the haunted library spread. The patrons listened with a mix of awe and disbelief, their hearts touched by the tale of a place where the past and present coexisted. Riverton's library was a place of peace, a sanctuary from the noise of modern life, and Emily knew she would carry the lessons of the haunted library with her always. The mysterious figure had shown her that sometimes the most profound connections are made in the quiet moments when the world is still and the heart is open. The night of the full moon. In the remote village of Silver Hollow, nestled deep within the forested hills, the full moon was a time of both wonder and fear. The villagers spoke of strange occurrences that happened on these nights, when the moon hung high and bright in the sky, casting its silvery glow over the land. For generations, the people of Silver Hollow had observed the full moon with a mix of reverence and caution. It was said that on these nights, the boundary between the natural and the supernatural blurred, and the village became a stage for the inexplicable. One such night, as the full moon rose over the treetops, a young woman named Alara found herself drawn to the forest. She had heard the stories of the moon's magic, of the creatures that roam the woods, and her heart raced with a mix of excitement and trepidation. As she ventured deeper into the forest, the air grew cooler and the shadows lengthened. The moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting an ethereal glow on the path ahead. Elara felt a presence beside her, a sense of being watched, and she knew she was not alone. The forest was alive with the sounds of the night, the rustle of leaves, and the call of distant owls. But there was something else, a melody that seemed to float on the breeze, a song that tugged at the edges of her consciousness. Intrigued, Elara followed the sound, her footsteps silent on the forest floor. The music grew louder, more insistent, leading her to a clearing bathed in moonlight. There she saw them, figures dancing in the light, their forms shifting and ethereal. They were the spirits of the forest, the guardians of Silver Hollow, and they moved with a grace that took her breath away. Elara watched in awe, her heart full of wonder at the beauty of the scene before her. As the dance continued, one of the spirits approached, its eyes filled with a wisdom that transcended time. "You are welcome here," it said, its voice a soft whisper that carried on the wind. "The moon has chosen you to witness our celebration." Elara nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. She felt a connection to the spirits, a bond that transcended the boundaries of the physical world. The full moon had revealed a hidden realm, a place of magic and mystery, and she was honored to be a part of it. As the night wore on, Elara joined the dance, her movements guided by the music of the forest. She felt a sense of freedom, a release from the constraints of the everyday, and she knew she would carry this moment with her always. When the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, the spirits began to fade, their forms dissolving into the mist. Elara watched as they disappeared, her heart full of peace and understanding. The next morning, as the village awoke to a new day, Elara shared her experience with her neighbors, and the story of the night of the full moon spread. The villagers listened with a mix of awe and disbelief, their hearts touched by the tale of a night when the ordinary became extraordinary. Silver Hollow was a place of magic, a sanctuary from the noise of modern life, and Elara knew she would carry the lessons of the full moon with her always. The spirits had shown her the power of connection, the beauty of the natural world, and the importance of embracing the unknown. The secret door. In the heart of the bustling city of Eldridge, nestled between towering skyscrapers and busy streets, stood an old brownstone building. It was a place of history and charm, its walls echoing with the stories of those who had lived there. But hidden within its depths was a secret, a door that led to another world. For years, the residents of the building had whispered about the secret door, a portal that appeared only to those who truly needed it. Some claimed it was a gateway to a parallel universe, while others believed it was a passage to the past. But no one knew for sure, for the door was elusive, revealing itself only when the time was right. One rainy afternoon, as the city bustled with life, a young woman named Lily found herself drawn to the building. She had heard the stories of the secret door, and her heart raced with a mix of excitement and curiosity. As she wandered through the halls, the air grew cooler, and the shadows lengthened. Lily felt a presence. Beside her, a sense of being watched, and she knew she was close. In a forgotten corner of the building, she found it. A door that seemed to shimmer in the dim light, its surface etched with intricate patterns. Lily hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob, before gathering the courage to step inside. The world beyond the door was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was a place of wonder and magic, where the sky was a tapestry of colors, and the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers. The landscape was both familiar and strange, a reflection of her own world, but with a twist of the fantastical. As she explored, Lily encountered others who had found their way through the door, each with their own story and purpose. They spoke of the door's magic, of how it had appeared to them in times of need, offering guidance and solace. Intrigued, Lily spent the day in this new world, her heart full of wonder at the beauty and mystery that surrounded her. She felt a sense of peace, a release from the constraints of the everyday, and she knew she had been given a rare gift. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the landscape, Lily knew it was time to return. She retraced her steps, her heart heavy with the knowledge that she would carry this experience with her always. Back in the city, Lily shared her story with her friends, and the tale of the secret door spread. The residents of the building listened with a mix of awe and disbelief, their hearts touched by the tale of a place where the ordinary became extraordinary. Eldridge was a place of magic, a sanctuary from the noise of modern life, and Lily knew she would carry the lessons of the secret door with her always. The mysterious portal had shown her the power of imagination, the beauty of the unknown, and the importance of embracing the unexpected. The Phantom Carnival. In the sleepy town of Willow Springs, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there was a legend that spoke of a carnival that appeared only once every generation. It was said to arrive without warning, its colorful tents and lively music drawing people from miles around. But as quickly as it appeared, it would vanish, leaving only whispers and memories in its wake. For years, the townsfolk had spoken of the Phantom Carnival, sharing tales of its wonders and mysteries. Some claimed it was a place of magic, where dreams came true and the impossible became possible. Others warned of its dangers, of the price one might pay for a night of enchantment. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves turned golden and the air grew crisp, the carnival arrived. Its lights twinkled in the twilight, and the sound of laughter and music filled the air. The townspeople gathered, their hearts full of anticipation and excitement. For a young girl named Clara, the carnival was a dream come true. She had heard the stories from her grandmother, who had visited the carnival as a child, and her heart raced with the thrill of adventure. As she wandered through the carnival, Clara marveled at the sights and sounds that surrounded her. There were rides that soared into the sky, games of chance that promised prizes beyond imagination, and performers who dazzled with their feats of skill and daring. But it was the Hall of Mirrors that drew Clara in, its entrance a shimmering portal that beckoned her with a promise of mystery. As she stepped inside, the world around her shifted, the reflections twisting and turning in a dance of light and shadow. In the maze of mirrors, Clara saw herself as she had never seen before. Each reflection showed a different version of her life, paths not taken and choices not made. She saw herself as an artist, a scientist, a traveler, each image a glimpse into a future that might have been. As she navigated the maze, Clara felt a presence beside her, a sense of being watched. She turned to see a figure standing in the shadows, its form indistinct and ethereal. "Who are you?" Clara asked, her voice steady despite the chill that crept up her spine. The figure stepped into the light, revealing the face of a young woman, her eyes filled with a wisdom that transcended time. "I am a guide," she said, her voice a soft melody that carried on the breeze. "I show those who seek the truth of their own hearts." Clara listened, her mind racing with the implications. The Hall of Mirrors was not just a place of illusion, but a reflection of the soul, a place where the past, present, and future intertwined. With newfound understanding, Clara continued her journey through the maze, her heart full of gratitude for the experience. She knew she had been given a rare gift, a chance to see herself in a new light and to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, the carnival began to fade, its tents and rides dissolving into the mist. Clara watched as it disappeared, her heart full of peace and understanding. The next morning, as the town awoke to a new day, Clara shared her experience with her friends, and the story of the Phantom Carnival spread. The townsfolk listened with a mix of awe and disbelief, their hearts touched by the tale of a night when the ordinary became extraordinary. Willow Springs was a place of magic, a sanctuary from the noise of modern life, and Clara knew she would carry the lessons of the Phantom Carnival with her always. The mysterious event had shown her the power of self-discovery, the beauty of the unknown, and the importance of embracing the unexpected. The Phantom Train. In the quiet town of Eldridge, an old railway line cut through the landscape, its tracks long abandoned and overgrown with weeds. The station, once bustling with life, now stood silent and forgotten, a relic of a bygone era. Yet the townsfolk spoke in hushed tones of a ghostly train that still traveled the tracks, a phantom that appeared on misty nights. For years, the stories had intrigued Daniel, a young history enthusiast with a penchant for the supernatural. Determined to uncover the truth, he set out one foggy evening, armed with a camera and a notebook, ready to document the legend of the phantom train. The air was thick with mist as Daniel made his way to the old station. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the tracks. The silence was profound, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl. As he waited, Daniel felt a chill run down his spine, a sense of anticipation that set his heart racing. He checked his watch, noting the time. Midnight, the hour when the train was said to appear. Suddenly, the air vibrated with the distant sound of a whistle, a mournful wail that echoed through the night. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as he peered down the tracks, his eyes straining to see through the fog. And then it appeared, a train, its outlines shimmering in the moonlight, its windows aglow with an otherworldly light. The engine was a relic of the past, its wheels clattering over the tracks, with a sound that was both familiar and strange. Daniel raised his camera, snapping photos as the train approached. He could see figures inside, passengers dressed in clothing from another era, their faces pale and expressionless. They stared out at him, their eyes filled with a longing that tugged at his heart. As the train drew closer, Daniel felt a pull, a compulsion to step onto the tracks and join the spectral passengers. But he resisted, his mind racing with the realization that the train was not just a ghostly apparition, but a portal to another time. The train slowed as it reached the station, its whistle echoing one last time before it came to a stop. Daniel watched in awe as the doors opened, and the passengers began to disembark, their movements slow and deliberate. He wanted to speak, to ask them who they were and why they traveled this ghostly road. But the words caught in his throat. Instead, he watched as they faded into the mist, their forms dissolving like smoke. The train lingered for a moment, its presence, a tangible weight in the air. Then with a final whistle, it began to move, picking up speed as it disappeared into the fog, leaving only silence in its wake. Daniel stood alone on the platform, his heart pounding with the thrill of what he had witnessed. The phantom train was real, a bridge between worlds, a reminder of the past that refused to be forgotten. As he made his way back to town, Daniel knew he had a story to tell, a tale of mystery and wonder that would captivate the townsfolk. The Wadi Phantom train had shown him the power of history and the enduring connection between the living and the dead. The Lighthouse Keeper. On the rugged coast of Maine, the old lighthouse stood as a solitary sentinel against the crashing waves. Its light cut through the fog, a beacon for ships navigating the treacherous waters. For years, it had been manned by a single keeper, a man named Elias, who had dedicated his life to its upkeep. Elias was a man of few words, content with the solitude that the lighthouse provided. He found comfort in the rhythmic sound of the sea and the steady beam of light that swept across the horizon. But as the years passed, he began to notice strange occurrences. Objects moved on their own, and whispers echoed through the halls. One stormy night, as the wind howled and the rain lashed against the windows, Elias heard a knock at the door. It was an unusual sound, given the isolation of the lighthouse, and it set his heart racing. Cautiously, he opened the door to find a man standing on the threshold, drenched and shivering. His clothes were tattered, and his eyes held a haunted look. "Please," the man said, his voice barely audible over the storm. "I need shelter." Elias ushered him inside, offering him a blanket and a seat by the fire. As the man warmed himself, Elias noticed the strange aura that surrounded him, a sense of otherworldliness that made the hairs on his neck stand on end. "What's your name?" Elias asked, trying to quell the unease that gnawed at him. "Call me Thomas," the man replied, his gaze fixed on the flames. "I was on a ship that went down in the storm. I don't know how I survived." Elias nodded, though he felt a chill at the man's words. The sea was unforgiving, and it was rare for anyone to survive such a wreck. As the night wore on, Thomas spoke of the ship, of the crew lost to the depths, and of the strange light that had guided him to the lighthouse. Elias listened, his mind racing with the implications. The lighthouse had been his domain for years, and he knew its light well. But the light Thomas described was different, a spectral glow that seemed to beckon him from the sea. As dawn broke, Elias turned to speak to Thomas, only to find the chair empty. The blanket lay discarded on the floor, and the door stood ajar, the storm having passed. Confused and unsettled, Elias searched the lighthouse, but there was no sign of Thomas. It was as if he had vanished into thin air, leaving only the memory of his presence behind. Determined to uncover the truth, Elias ventured to the cliffs, where the wreckage of a ship lay, scattered on the rocks. Among the debris, he found a nameplate, its letters worn but legible: the Sea Ghost. The name sent a shiver down his spine, for he had heard tales of the Sea Ghost, a ship lost to the sea decades ago, its crew never found. The realization hit him like a wave. Thomas was not of this world, but a spirit seeking closure. Elias returned to the lighthouse, his heart heavy with the weight of the encounter. He knew he had been given a glimpse into the past, a chance to help a lost soul find peace. That night, as the light swept across the sea, Elias stood at the window, whispering a prayer for Thomas and the crew of the Sea Ghost. The lighthouse had always been a beacon of hope, and now it was a bridge between worlds, a place where the living and the dead could find solace. The Haunted Painting. In the heart of the city, nestled between towering skyscrapers, stood a small art gallery known for its eclectic collection. Among its many treasures was a painting that had captured the attention of art enthusiasts and skeptics alike. It was a portrait of a woman, her eyes hauntingly lifelike, her expression enigmatic. The artist, a reclusive figure named Victor, had poured his soul into the painting, capturing the essence of a woman he had loved and lost. But as the years passed, rumors began to circulate that the painting was haunted, that the woman's eyes followed visitors as they moved through the gallery. For Claire, a young art student with a passion for the mysterious, the painting was a source of fascination. She visited the gallery often, drawn to the woman's gaze, which seemed to hold a secret just out of reach. One evening, as the gallery prepared to close, Claire lingered in front of the painting, lost in thought. The room was quiet, the only sound of the ticking of a distant clock. As she studied the woman's face, she noticed something strange. The expression had changed, a subtle shift that sent a chill down her spine. Intrigued and unnerved, Claire returned the next day, determined to uncover the truth. She spent hours in the gallery, observing the painting from every angle, convinced that it was more than just a trick of the light. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the room, Claire felt a presence beside her. She turned to find an elderly man watching her, his eyes filled with a knowing sadness. "You're drawn to her, aren't you?" he asked, his voice soft and weary. Claire nodded, unsure of how to respond. "There's something about her. It's like she's alive." The man smiled, a bittersweet expression that spoke of years of longing. "She was alive once," he said, his gaze returning to the painting. "Her name was Eliza, and she was the love of my life." Claire's heart skipped a beat as she realized she was speaking to Victor, the artist himself. "What happened to her?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Victor sighed, his shoulders heavy with the weight of memory. "She passed away before I could finish the painting. I poured my grief into it, hoping to capture her spirit. But I think I did more than that." Claire listened, her mind racing with the implications. The painting was not just a tribute, but a vessel for Eliza's spirit, a connection between the living and the dead. As the gallery emptied, Victor and Claire stood in silence, the painting watching over them. The air was thick with emotion, and Claire felt a tear slip down her cheek. "Can she be freed?" Claire asked, her heart aching for the woman trapped in the canvas. Victor nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I believe so, but it will require letting go, something I've struggled with for years." Together, they devised a plan to release Eliza's spirit, to give her the peace she deserved. As the clock struck midnight, they gathered in front of the painting, speaking words of love and farewell. The air shimmered, and for a moment, Claire thought she saw Eliza's spirit, her face serene and free. The painting's expression softened, the eyes no longer haunted, but at peace. Victor smiled, a weight lifted from his heart. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with gratitude. Claire nodded, her heart full of hope. The haunted painting had taught her the power of love and the importance of letting go. As she left the gallery, she knew she had witnessed something extraordinary, a moment where art and life intertwined and the past found its peace. The shadow in the basement. The old house on Maple Street had always been a source of fascination and fear for the neighborhood children. Its windows were dark, its paint peeling, and its garden overgrown with weeds. But for the Johnson family, it was a new beginning, a chance to start fresh in a place they could call their own. As they settled in, the family quickly discovered that the house had its quirks. The floors creaked, the pipes groaned, and the basement door had a tendency to swing open on its own. But it was the basement itself that held the most mystery, a place where shadows seemed to gather and linger. For young Timmy, the basement was a place of adventure. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of curiosity, he often ventured down the creaky stairs, exploring the dusty corners and forgotten relics. But as the days passed, he began to notice something strange, a shadow that seemed to move on its own, slipping between the boxes and shelves. At first, Timmy thought it was his imagination, a trick of the light. But the shadow grew bolder, its presence more pronounced. It whispered to him, a soft, insistent voice that sent shivers down his spine. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Timmy decided to share his experiences. "There's something in the basement," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. "A shadow that talks to me." His parents exchanged worried glances, dismissing his story as a child's fantasy. "It's just your imagination, Timmy," his father said, ruffling his hair. "There's nothing to be afraid of." But Timmy knew what he had seen, and he was determined to uncover the truth. That night, he crept down to the basement, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The air was cold and the shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own. As he reached the bottom of the stairs, the shadow appeared, its form shifting and ethereal. It whispered his name, a sound like rustling leaves, and Timmy felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped him. The shadow hesitated, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. "I am a memory," it replied, its voice tinged with sadness. "A part of this house that has been forgotten." Timmy listened, his heart aching for the lonely spirit. He realized that the shadow was not a threat, but a remnant of the past, a soul seeking closure. Determined to help, Timmy spent the next few days researching the history of the house. He discovered that it had once belonged to a family who had suffered a great loss, a tragedy that had left its mark on the very walls. Armed with this knowledge, Timmy returned to the basement, speaking words of comfort and understanding. He assured the shadow that it was not alone, that its story would be remembered. As he spoke, the shadow began to fade, its form dissolving into the darkness. The air grew warmer, and Timmy felt a sense of peace settle over the room. The next morning, the basement was different. The shadows were no longer menacing, but calm. Timmy's parents noticed the change, remarking on how their son seemed more at ease. Timmy smiled, knowing he had helped the shadow find its peace. The house on Maple Street was no longer a place of fear, but a home filled with light and love. The shadow in the basement had taught him the power of empathy and the importance of honoring the past. The Cemetery Watcher. In the small town of Willow Creek, the cemetery lay on the outskirts, a quiet resting place for generations of townsfolk. It was a place of peace and reflection, where the living came to remember the dead. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the cemetery took on a different air, one of mystery and whispers. For years, the cemetery had a night watchman, an elderly man named Harold, who took pride in his work. He walked the grounds each evening, his lantern casting a warm glow on the headstones. Harold had seen many things in his time, but he never spoke of them, keeping the secrets of the cemetery close to his heart. One chilly autumn night, as the wind rustled the leaves and the moon cast eerie shadows, Harold noticed something unusual. A figure stood among the graves, its form indistinct in the darkness. Harold approached cautiously, his lantern held high. "Who's there?" he called, his voice steady despite the chill that crept up his spine. The figure turned, revealing a young woman with a sorrowful expression. Her eyes were filled with a longing that tugged at Harold's heart. "I'm looking for someone," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Harold nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "Many come here searching," he replied gently. "Who is it you seek?" The woman hesitated, her gaze drifting to a nearby headstone. "My brother," she said, her voice breaking. "He passed away years ago, but I feel like he's still here." Harold followed her gaze, recognizing the name etched into the stone. He had tended to this grave many times, feeling the presence of the young man who lay beneath. "He's at peace," Harold assured her, his voice filled with compassion. "But sometimes the living need closure as much as the dead." The woman nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I just want to say goodbye," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Harold placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, guiding her to the grave. Together they stood in silence, the night enveloping them in its quiet embrace. The air was still, and Harold felt a warmth spread through him, a sense of connection to the spirits that lingered. As the woman spoke her farewell, Harold sensed a shift in the air, a lightening of the atmosphere. The cemetery felt different, the shadows less menacing, the whispers softer. The woman turned to Harold, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with relief. "I feel like I can finally move on." Harold nodded, his heart full of understanding. "We all need to find our peace," he replied, watching as she walked away, her steps lighter than before. As the night deepened, Harold continued his rounds, his lantern casting a gentle glow on the graves. The cemetery was a place of rest, but it was also a place of healing, where the living and the dead could find solace. Harold knew he would continue to watch over the cemetery, tending to the spirits and the stories they carried. The cemetery watcher had learned the power of compassion and the importance of listening to the whispers of the past. The Cursed Amulet. In the heart of the Egyptian desert, an archaeological dig was underway, led by the ambitious Dr. Emily Carter. Her team had been working tirelessly for weeks, unearthing artifacts from a long-lost civilization. Among the treasures they discovered was a small, intricately carved amulet, its surface etched with ancient symbols. Emily was captivated by the amulet's beauty and mystery. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, and she felt a strange connection to it, as if it held secrets waiting to be uncovered. Ignoring the warnings of her colleagues who spoke of curses and ancient protections, Emily decided to keep the amulet with her, convinced it would lead to a groundbreaking discovery. That night, as the desert winds howled outside her tent, Emily examined the amulet under the flickering light of a lantern. The symbols seemed to dance in the shadows, and she felt a chill run down her spine. Despite the warmth of the desert, the air around her grew cold, and she heard a faint whisper, a voice that seemed to emanate from the amulet itself. The next morning, Emily awoke to find the camp in disarray. Equipment had been overturned, and strange markings had appeared in the sand, as if something had moved through the camp during the night. Her colleagues were on edge, their earlier warnings now tinged with fear. Determined to understand the amulet's power, Emily delved into her research, poring over ancient texts and consulting with local historians. She learned that the amulet was said to be a key, a conduit to the spirit world, and that it had been buried with a powerful sorcerer who had vowed to protect it for eternity. As the days passed, the strange occurrences continued. Shadows moved on their own, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Emily's dreams were filled with visions of the past, of rituals and sacrifices, and she began to fear that the amulet's curse was real. One evening, as the sun set over the desert, Emily decided to confront the amulet's power. She gathered her team, explaining the situation and asking for their help. Together, they formed a circle around the amulet, speaking words of protection and peace. As they chanted, the air shimmered, and Emily felt a presence, a weight that pressed down on her like a heavy fog. The amulet glowed with an otherworldly light, and the whispers reached a crescendo, a cacophony of voices that filled the night. But as the ritual continued, the voices began to fade, the light dimming until it was no more than a flicker. The air grew warmer, and Emily felt a sense of calm wash over her, a peace that had been absent for so long. The next morning, the camp was quiet. The strange occurrences ceased. Emily knew that the amulet's curse had been lifted, its power finally laid to rest. She decided to return the amulet to its rightful place, ensuring that its secrets would remain undisturbed. As she buried the amulet in the sands of the desert, Emily reflected on the experience, grateful for the lessons it had taught her. The cursed amulet had shown her the power of history and the importance of respecting the mysteries of the past. The abandoned asylum. On the outskirts of the city, shrouded in mist and mystery, stood the old Ravenswood Asylum. Once a place of healing, it had been abandoned for decades, its halls echoing with the memories of those who had walked them. The townsfolk spoke of strange occurrences and ghostly apparitions, warning all who dared to venture near. For a group of urban explorers, Sam, Jess, and Mike, the asylum was the ultimate challenge. They had heard the stories, but their thirst for adventure and the unknown drove them to explore its decaying corridors. Armed with flashlights and cameras, they approached the asylum under the cover of darkness, the moon casting an eerie glow over the crumbling facade. The air was thick with anticipation, and the silence was profound, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl. As they stepped inside, the floorboards creaked under their weight, and the air grew colder, a chill that seeped into their bones. The walls were lined with peeling paint, and the remnants of old furniture lay scattered, a testament to the passage of time. "Let's stick together," Sam suggested, his voice barely above a whisper. The others nodded, their earlier bravado waning in the face of the asylum's oppressive atmosphere. As they explored, they felt a presence, a sense of being watched. Shadows danced at the edge of their vision, and the air was filled with whispers, soft voices that seemed to come from the very walls. In one of the rooms, they found an old journal, its pages yellowed and fragile. It belonged to a former patient, a woman named Eleanor, who had written of her experiences within the asylum. Her words spoke of loneliness and despair, but also of hope and resilience. As they read, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, and the air shimmered with an otherworldly light. The explorers realized that the spirits of the asylum were reaching out, seeking closure and understanding. Determined to help, they gathered in the main hall, forming a circle and holding hands. They spoke words of peace, asking the spirits to find rest and assuring them that their stories would not be forgotten. As they chanted, the air grew warmer and the whispers softened, fading into the night. The asylum felt different, the shadows less menacing, the atmosphere lighter. The explorers left the asylum in silence, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had experienced. They knew they had been part of something extraordinary, a moment where the past and present intertwined and the spirits of Ravenswood found peace. Back in the city, they shared their story, and the townsfolk listened with a mix of awe and disbelief. The abandoned asylum had always been a place of mystery, but now it was a place of healing, its secrets finally laid to rest. Sam, Jess, and Mike knew they had been given a rare gift, a chance to connect with the past and honor the stories of those who had come before. The asylum had taught them the power of empathy, the importance of listening, and the beauty of finding peace in the most unexpected places.